From Transport Topics in Washington, D.C., this is Road Signs. Here is your host, Seth Clevenger.
Thank you for listening to Road Signs, the podcast series from Transport Topics that explores the trends and technologies that are shaping the future of trucking. In this episode, we're going to bring you a unique perspective on the emergence of truck platooning. You're going to hear from a pair of professional drivers who have spent many months testing this technology on closed tracks and on highways across the country. In case you're unfamiliar with the concept, truck platooning uses vehicle-to-vehicle communications to synchronize the throttle and braking systems of two trucks so they can travel together on the highway in a tight formation. This improves aerodynamics and can generate significant fuel savings. But how is this technology performing in real-world conditions? And what are test drivers seeing out on the road as they travel in truck platoons to pave the way for a commercial rollout? To help answer those questions, I'm excited to bring in Mike Perkins and Derek Liu. They're both test drivers who have been operating the Platoon Pro system developed by Peloton Technology. Welcome to the program, gentlemen.
Hi, thanks for having us, Seth.
Yeah, thank you, Seth.
Mike, I'll start with you. I think a lot of people in our industry by now are familiar with the concept of truck platooning, but for those who aren't, could you just briefly explain how the system works?
Yeah, sure. Peloton's Platoon Pro system is a driver-assistive platooning system. And from a driver's perspective, it feels a lot like what we would consider super adaptive cruise control. The system electronically links the collision avoidance systems of a pair of heavy trucks so that they can draft safely to save fuel. And I'm talking drafting just like NASCAR.
Yeah, it's aerodynamic and it's shorter following distances and you get the fuel savings that way. So Mike, just tell us about your experience behind the wheel testing this system. You know, how long have you been testing the Peloton platooning system and where have you been testing it? In what parts of the country?
Oh, yeah. I joined Peloton in 2017 and we were at that time getting right into the major testing that took place over the last couple of years. And there's 32 states that we're allowed to test in, and 27 of those states were allowed to go full production. We've done a lot of customer pilots in about 12 of those states, and that started in about 2017, 2018, around then. And those states are including Alabama, Florida, Louisiana, Nevada, Tennessee, Texas. We've been out there for a while.
So you've really been going all over the country, lots of different regions of the country and various states to test this out on highways.
Right, and not only testing, but before the testing, we had a team of people going out and actually getting with the Department of Transportation to help try to change some of these laws so that we could do testing and so that we could show the safety of the system on the open public roads. As well as after taking it off the track.
Sure. And what about you, Derek? How long have you been testing this system? And talk about your experience in these platoon tests.
Yeah, so I've been testing our platooning system and running freight as part of Peloton's pilot program for over 2 years. I really enjoy it. It's like team driving, but I have the privacy of my own cab. So yeah, like Mike says, primarily our system testing is focused in, California and Texas, and it includes both highway and track testing.
And have you guys worked together much? I know you probably have multiple, a number of test drivers, but have you guys worked a lot together over the years?
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah, well, we've got a tight little small knit group of test drivers. We've done a lot of helping other fleets. Showing off the system to them and teaching them how it works. But as far as our testing group, it's a small group, so we work with each other on a daily basis.
Sure, and in practice, when you're out there testing the system in real world driving environment or real world operations, what is a typical following distance for the rear truck while the platoon is active? How much closer can you get than you would be, normally without the benefit of the platooning system?
Okay, so we've tested various following distances, but the average following distance for the Peloton Platoon Pro system is between 40 and 60 feet. Of late, we've been running freight at about 55 feet, so that's it's about 17 meters. And for most people out there that can't really imagine that, 55 feet is about the length of a trailer.
So that's pretty close. It's definitely closer than you'd be able to to do safely without the technology that synchronizes the braking.
Exactly. And the reason why we're able to do that is exactly what you said. The braking is connected. So as soon as that front truck feels the need that to slow down, the back truck is already reacting.
When we discuss truck platooning, one of the concerns that tends to come up is the potential for cut-ins by passenger cars. So I'm just wondering, you have more experience with this technology than anyone really. How often do you actually see that happening out on the road when you're testing the platooning system? And when a cut-in does occur, what do you do when it happens?
Well, actually, out on the road, we've seen a very low rate of cut-ins, and as a professional driver with years of experience, I mean, I'm trained to detect a cut-in from a mile away. So, however, but if a platooning driver doesn't detect a cut-in before it happens, the Peloton Platoon Pro system is designed to, handle those cut-ins. So, if a vehicle happens to cut in between the trucks, the system will automatically dissolve, our platoon and proactively grow the gap between the trucks. And a little fact, the data from our customer trials has shown that we approximately see one cut-in once, every 620 miles.
So it's not constantly happening. It's a pretty rare occurrence.
Yeah, it's pretty rare. Especially when you get that close of a gap, people tend to try to stay away from big trucks.
Yeah, at least they should if they're safe drivers. I guess you'll encounter the
Yeah.
daredevils, unfortunately, once in a while. But Mike, that sounds similar to what you've seen as well. Pretty rare to see a cut in.
Yeah, it's pretty rare. There are there are those daredevils that try it, right? But when the trucks are that close together, you pretty much got to be evil Knievel to want to go in between those
Yeah.
two big vehicles like that.
And the main benefit of well, I guess what we'll call it a level 1 automated platooning system. This is a driver assist technology. What we're discussing here, the main benefit is fuel economy. And what kind of fuel savings are you actually seeing in your testing? I know there's so many variables with fuel economy. It depends on weather conditions, traffic conditions, just what part of the country you're in. But what is a pretty typical type of fuel savings you actually see out there?
Right. So with the testing that we've been doing with the Platoon Pro system, we found an average fuel savings of about 7% across a pair of trucks. And that translates roughly into about 4.5% for the front truck and 10% for the follow truck. And hopefully, um, the Platoon Pro and its fuel savings can help incentivize fleets to adopt these active safety systems, and then of course that would be the first step to being able to use a system like ours.
In times like these, it's crucial to stay informed. Transport Topics is offering all the information you need to make business decisions in these unprecedented times. And in the wake of the many event cancellations and group gatherings, TT ensures a virtual way to consume business content and conversation. To join the conversation and stay ahead of the news, follow Transport Topics on all social outlets or by visiting ttn.ws/stay informed.
And I'm curious from your perspective as test drivers, what's this experience like? Especially you think about the lead truck. I mean, this is going to be a pretty typical experience, but the follower truck, you're following at a close following distance. You're still steering the vehicle. Just explain the difference between those two roles. I'd like to ask you each about how those two compare.
Sure. Yeah. So the lead truck driver controls the speed of the platoon and is actively, still steering and monitoring the road ahead. The follow driver has an experience similar to using the adaptive cruise control. So they are also, just steering and controlling the truck, but has their, the feet off the pedals. The system itself safely controls the gap. And I mean, for example, if Mike is the lead driver and I'm the follow driver, we're also able to directly communicate about, lane changes and changing road conditions with a dedicated push to talk pedal. And as a rear driver, This communication link also allows me to help Mike with scanning the road ahead and possibly, anticipating a cut in or other vehicles, what they might do, and sharing if I see a hazard on the shoulder or not, so I can let them know ahead of time.
So you guys really are driving as a team. You guys are, sharing tips, what you're seeing, what's out there, beyond just the drafting. It's also sharing communications, person to person.
Exactly. And that's another benefit, not just the safety with the connected braking and not just the fuel savings with the drafting. Also, you're able to communicate with that front vehicle if you're in the back, or the front, can communicate with the back. Can the two of you are? It forms a deeper commitment to teamwork, and the drivers pretty much help each other get down the road. That push to talk pedal, as we call it, can communicate between the two trucks. That way, you don't have to take your hands off the wheel. You don't have to pick up the microphone for the radio. You can just simply use your foot and continue to control the truck as you move down the road together.
And a follow-up question I had for you guys, just how long did it take to get comfortable behind the wheel in the follower truck? You are following at a significantly shorter following distance than what's normal. So, I mean, naturally, you may kind of feel like you're following a little too close at first. So how do you acclimate yourself to that and trust the technology and get comfortable with that role and how to use it?
Yeah, that was the first time that I rode in the follow truck while platooning. It was on a track, and I was sitting in the passenger seat. And initially, the gap felt pretty close, but the second that the lead driver hit the brakes, while we were going at about a 6G stop, it felt like my truck instantaneously started hitting the brakes as soon as I saw the brake lights for the front truck come on. So the gap didn't change the entire time that we were coming to a stop. The gap stayed the same. So we were still at that time we were back a little bit further, but the gap at that time still it stayed the same. And each time since then, as we brought that gap in from, and we started out at about, about 98 feet, and it's come in now to 55. The gap is always maintained, so the system is pretty robust and safe as far as I'm concerned.
And Derek, your thoughts, maybe like just how much time did it take you to get used to the shorter following distance when you first started doing this?
Yeah, first it was pretty scary, but I've had a similar experience to Mike, and I'll add that what makes this thing possible is that the collision avoidance system of these trucks are, wirelessly connected using vehicle-to-vehicle communications. So, like for example, if someone cuts off the lead truck, that lead driver steps on the brakes, that follow truck will actually immediately start to brake, and it's all due to the algorithms built into our Peloton system that the follow truck can actually brake harder than the lead truck, helping to ensure, that a possible collision is avoided.
Yeah, that's one piece of the driving task that software can do faster than a human reacting to what you see. So it's using both the skills of a highly trained driver with technology to help assist the driver. So it's an interesting kind of state of the art that we're entering as an industry right now, where you're using both to try to be as safe as possible and as efficient as possible.
Yeah, exactly. We want to get the point across that at Peloton, we're not trying to replace a driver in the seat. This technology, like I said, it's like cruise control on steroids. We need the drivers there to control the vehicle. When with Platoon Pro, you are only allowed to use it on certain segments of the open highway. Um, and this isn't something that you're going to see a driver or pairs of drivers doing as they're cutting through town to make deliveries. This is only for the open highway. That's where you get the best fuel economy, and also the ability to use the safety of the distance within the gap for the connected braking. So we're not trying to replace any drivers. We want to help drivers uh, learn the new systems that are coming on these trucks. There's stuff on these trucks that uh, a lot of people aren't even using. Adaptive cruise control may be something that is common on trucks now, but a lot of drivers don't use it. So, this is a way that we are putting these systems together and then linking them so that we can maximize the fuel economy and the safety that the systems bring to the table.
And Mike and Derek, you guys both have a pretty unique, interesting job. There's a lot of truck driving jobs out there, and every application you can imagine. But this is pretty unique, being a test driver for an emerging technology like this. So I kind of want to get your background and how you guys kind of found yourselves in this very interesting role. And I'll start with you, Mike. Just tell us a little bit about yourself and your career in trucking, and how you ended up working for Peloton and doing this.
Right. Yeah. So I started my career in the military, served 6 years in the Air Force, got out of the Air Force, and I wanted to continue the career that I had in the Air Force, which was photography. But at the time, it was changing over from film to digital. And for a lot of people might not remember, back then, digital cameras and the equipment and everything, those cost thousands and thousands of dollars. So
Right.
I quickly found a new career.
Now it's in your phone. Yeah, right.
Yeah, right. Now everything's in your phone. But back then it was ridiculous. So I quickly found a new career that made some decent money. Got into trucking 2 or 3 years after I got out of the military. Before I joined Peloton, I'd been in the industry about 15 years. And had worked for a couple of the largest transport companies in the country, and along the way achieved the million mile safe driver status. And about 2 years ago, moving cross country from the East Coast, I found my way to California, and Peloton was the first job I got, and it's just incredible I didn't understand that you could have so much fun playing with trucks, right? I would suggest that any driver out there that can find his way into a test driving position, do it, because this is the most fun I've ever had.
Oh, that's a great story, and congratulations on the 1 million mile mark. That's always a huge accomplishment, and it is cool to see the different directions this career field can take you,
right?
Even when on the technology side,
right?
And Derek, I want to ask you the same thing. How did your career path take you to Peloton? And again, a very pretty unique job within the industry.
Oh, definitely. I've had my CDL since 2011. I've worked for various trucking companies within the industry, both as a driver and a operations manager. I came to work at Peloton as a professional test driver in 2018 because I was really interested in the technology. I really think that this new technology, like platooning and new advanced driving systems, and even automated following technology, can help attract newer, younger drivers, to this industry. And just like Mike said, this is the most fun I've ever had. So it's great.
Great to hear that, and I think you're onto something on technology, maybe opening up some eyes and maybe attracting some new folks, a new generation to the industry, and or at least maybe taking a look at it.
I hope so. I hope that it attracts new drivers to the industry, because this is where the industry is going. The days of having a truck with no real technology in it is, it's over. You have to, think about it. No one's pulling out an Atlas anymore, right? Everyone's got their GPS stuck up on the window. Why not use the adaptive cruise control? Why not use the linked braking systems? Why not use level 1, 2, or even level 3 autonomy to help further your career? I mean, the more that you learn about these systems, the further your career will go in trucking. You're going to need to learn how this stuff works, and you're going to need to use it. Fleets are going to be adapting it, so you should open up your arms and be ready for it, and let it help you further your career in the industry.
Yeah, it is really fascinating what's happening, all the technology that's come into the industry really over the last, say, decade or so. But it seems to be accelerating, and there are a lot of possibilities.
Did you know you can ask Alexa to open Transport Topics? In just 1 minute, you will hear the biggest trucking headlines of that day. Be prepared and start your morning off right with Transport Topics.
Now, I do want to talk to you guys, kind of where you see platooning going. Right now, the platooning pilot programs in North America that are happening today, these are focused on 2-truck platoons. So basically, it's a pair of trucks. And there's also at least the thought. There's been some testing and at least thought that maybe the technology would allow platoons of 3 or more trucks at some point in the future. I just want to talk to both of you and get your thoughts on that. What opportunities and challenges do you see for potentially 3 or more trucks forming a road train through platooning?
Right, you're right, Seth. Today, most platooning systems running on U.S. highways are 2-truck systems, including Peloton's Platoon Pro. There are a number of reasons for this. Many states today don't even allow LCVs because of safety and congestion concerns. A combination of fleet market demand and state regulation will dictate whether the 3-truck platoons will become a reality. But for now, Peloton system is limited to 2 trucks, but it's not out of the question for the future.
And then, I think for the early adopters of platooning, we're generally going to be looking at intra-fleet platooning, where it's 2 trucks from the same company that are platooning together. Of course, the same company, they know each other and they can, plan platooning in advance. But, as it expands, there's also potentially the opportunity for trucks from different companies to come together on the highways and platoon. How do you see that evolving in the years ahead, Mike?
Hopefully that's where it's going. As of right now, the way that we would see it going is that we actually do hope that it starts out as within one fleet or within the same fleet. But the perfect scenario would be that any truck, any make that has advanced safety systems could also put in a Platoon Pro system and platoon with any other truck from any other fleet, and also be able to maintain the savings and the safety that the Platoon Pro system offers. That would be the best way, I think, to get the maximum fuel savings from the actual system is for interfleet platooning.
All right. Well, we'll have to see how that develops. And one other piece of this I want to talk about, for now, the driver of the follower truck is still steering the vehicle and is still actively monitoring the road in the driver's seat, always paying attention at all times. But looking ahead, Peloton is also looking at adding more automation in the future so that rear truck can autonomously follow the lead truck. And that lead truck, of course, would still be piloted by a driver. So I want to get your thoughts on the potential for that level of technology where you have a more highly automated follower truck in a platoon.
Yes, so you're correct. Peloton announced last year that we are actively developing a new generation automated following technology. Definitely see great potential in this. The cool thing about it is that it still keeps a driver in the system by allowing one driver to pilot a pair of trucks. It also doubles the amount of freight that one driver can haul in a single trip. I believe that by leveraging this experience, Peloton's auto follow system can help bring automation to this industry faster than a single fully autonomous truck, because those autonomous trucks need advanced mapping systems and must be designed for certain challenging scenarios that simply a lead truck platooning driver would be easily be able to navigate. Overall, I mean, we've learned a lot commercializing and testing our platooning system. So we're excited to apply this to this new potential system of automation.
We introduced a system that is pretty much that. So it's called the auto follow system, which will be the second system that we would come up that we would put to market after Platoon Pro. So with Auto Follow, it's almost exactly the same as Platoon Pro, except there is no driver in the back truck. The back truck has a larger following distance, but it can detect other vehicles on the road from a further distance back from the front truck. The front truck is still guiding. The front truck is still making sure that the back truck follows the same route as the front truck, but it's working more independently than the Platoon Pro system would allow for the back truck to work.
All right, and before I let you go, I just want to get your opinion on the potential for truck platooning in North America, in the years and decades ahead. Just how much adoption of this technology do you think we'll see in the future?
Oh, wow. As a driver, I see great potential for platooning in the years ahead. As many of the drivers that I've talked to and trained with who have seen the technology in action, they pretty much agree with me. The drivers that we've done pilots with and that we've trained on the track, they are loving it. So, they're looking forward to seeing a lot more of this stuff coming out. In fact, in 2018, since 2018, I'm sorry, we've actively worked with 6 customer fleets, many in the Transport Topics top 100. We've run pilots with many of them, at least 6. So Derek and my colleagues and I have hauled everything from beverages to home goods and baked goods over the roads. So using real customer routes, these pilots help customer fleets assess the possible fuel savings and whether platooning would easily fit into their logistics. And in the near future, very near future, we're participating in an ongoing long-term customer acceptance trial in Texas, which includes another of the Transport Topics top 10 customer fleets. And this actively includes customer drivers that will they'll take our system in their own trucks and run their routes for a long period of time. So platooning is coming soon, and we think that the connected vehicle technology will lay the groundwork for that and hopefully open up the deployment of more fully autonomous trucking technology systems.
And Derek, I also want to get your thoughts, your opinion on, the potential for truck platooning in the future.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think it's the way to go. Who wouldn't want to, save fuel and help the planet while being safe doing it?
Well, this will certainly be fun to watch. This has been a great conversation. It's been fascinating to hear about your experiences out on the road with this technology, but I do think that's a good place to wrap it up. So I'd like to thank both of you for being on the show.
All right. Thanks for having us, Seth.
All right. Thanks, Seth.
Transport Topics in one word: authoritative.
Knowledge.
Outstanding.
Reliable.
We asked Transport Topics readers to describe us in one word.
Informative.
Informative.
Integrity.
The Bible.
Authoritative.
The authority.
Transportation information, that's 2, but I gotta have it both.
Physically large. Oh, that's 2 words.
Visit influence.ttnews.com/say hello to find out what they're talking about.
Before we close, let's take a moment to revisit our original questions. How is truck platooning technology performing in real-world conditions? And what are test drivers seeing out on the road as they help pave the way for deployment? As we've heard from our guests, platooning trials have been underway on highways across the country for some time now. We already know that platooning can work from a technical perspective, so the next question is whether the business case will work for trucking companies. To realize the potential fuel savings from platooning, fleets will need to do more than simply adopt the technology. They'll also need to train their drivers and figure out how to make truck platoons fit into their operations. Cut-ins by passenger cars represent another challenge. While cut-ins do happen, they aren't all that common based on Peloton's experiences thus far. State laws and regulations are another issue, but a growing number of states have already cleared the way for the commercialization of driver-assistive truck platooning. Based on all these factors, it appears that platooning is nearly ready for a commercial rollout. Now we'll just have to wait and see which fleets decide to move forward and become early adopters of this technology. If you've enjoyed this episode of Road Signs, please let others know. Rate and review us on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. If my questions have sparked questions of your own, share them with me and the Road Signs team. You can email us at share@ttnews.com. We'll read them and respond daily. And of course, we'll be back in 2 weeks with a fresh episode of Road Signs. Until then, I'm Seth Clevenger. Thank you for listening.